11, 2017 meeting of the Hendersonville Board and Mayor and Alderman. We have a quorum here, and the next item is a prayer and a pledge. Will you please stand? And Alderman Campbell, will you say a prayer for us and lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thanks for this day. Thank you for allowing together here today to discuss our season business, dear Lord. I just pray that you give us guidance and leadership, dear Lord, to discern what's best for this town that I live in. I just pray that you be with each and every one of us, and be with those who might be sick, bereaved, or hurting, dear Lord, that are in our midst today. Need a special blessing from you, dear Heavenly Father. Pray that you'd watch over each and every one of us. I pray that the perfect peace will rest and abide in each of us every day. In God's name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Alderman Campbell.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Alderman Campbell, thank you. I entertain a motion to accept our agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Next item is presentations. Let me run down here real quick. Yeah, come on. Cool thing is we get to do this almost 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, now 2017. I don't want it to seem like this is common. This isn't important. Let me read a letter that I have. The Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting has been awarded to the City of Hendersonville by Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for our comprehensive annual financial report. This certificate of achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. Again, just because we give it every year doesn't mean it's insignificant. It's very significant that we're able to do that every year. The CAFR has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate the city's financial story and motivate potential users of the CAFR and user groups to read the CAFR. This is really a recognition of Dana and Ron and the finance department, and we have room in there for a button for 2017. And I very much appreciate what y'all do for the city. It's terribly important what y'all do. In the way that you work with our auditors and make sure on a daily basis that we're doing what we need to be doing. I very much appreciate that. It so happens that yesterday was Ron's 45th anniversary with the city. Yeah. So, Ron, I'm going to ask you to pass that over to Dana. And then you get this. And we got to have a little bit of cake with Ron and some of his employees, which I think his employees total about 45 years of service. He had, but we have a high level of service in our finance department, and it begins right here. So thank y'all. Do y'all want to say something? I know Ron won't. Maybe Dana will.
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're quiet.
Thank you very much for what you do for our city.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next item on the agenda is our public hearings, and we have none tonight. And then minutes. First one is approval of the June 13, 2017 meeting minutes. I entertain a motion to approve those. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the June 13th, 2017 meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Thank you. Next, we have the approval of public hearing minutes. Do we have those? Of June Also June 13th. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passed unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have citizens' comments. Just want to remind a couple things here, and we do this periodically, that this is a business meeting. If you come to speak, please ask yourself what action can be taken on that item that you want to speak about. Please ask yourself if we can take any action on the item tonight. If not, you might be better off taking the issue to your alderman or going through our committee process. Having said that, I also need to read some of our rules here. Public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per individual. That's not transferable to other speakers. All the comments are to be directed at me, presiding officers, not to the alderman, not to city staff, or other members of the public. Comments must address issues, not individuals or personalities. Personal attacks shall not be tolerated. Comments may support or oppose particular issues or measures, but the motives of those with differing views shall not be questioned or attacked. Malicious comments will not be allowed. Speeches for or against particular candidates running for public office shall not be allowed. Carl Chmielewski.
Good evening, everybody. I talked to you once before. I was really unprepared when I did so. Since then, I've done a little more research. I want to talk on the ordinance 2017-22, the request for transfer of property, I guess county road closure is actually what it is, I'm sorry. Since then, I went back and I saw the May 23rd county meeting where Mr. Isabel came, a county tax assessor, and talked about county roads, Walton Ferry Road definitions. And what I'd like to do is try to give some, I did some research since then. I'd like to give some clarity on the issue of where the property lines are, who owns what, and what some of these mysterious roads are. There's this one road, county road, that nobody seems to be able to find. I believe you all have a copy of a handout I just gave you. The first page is a map from 1937. I want to start back there because the deed for Mrs. Kozlov's property, which was given to her in 1985, referenced a 1948 document and a 1945 document. So to understand the deed and the verbal description of what the property, where the property is, you need a historical perspective of what the property looked like back then. So this is a map I found in the Historical Society map from the Sumner County Records Library. It shows Hendersonville. The yellow line coming down is what we call Walton Ferry, and the green line going across is Curtis Crossroads. So then below there I have it circled, which is the area of interest. So if on the second page, you can see the yellow line coming down from the top of the page. That's Walton Ferry. The pink line extending down from that line is the continuation of a Walton Ferry Road down to the river. Obviously, if you're going to have a ferry, you just don't stop short of the river. The line has to continue down to the river. The other lines I'm going to explain in a second. If you go to the third page now, this is a copy of Mrs. Kozlov's deed of 1985, and the property description given in this deed is the same that was given in 1945 and 1949. So I'd like to try to explain briefly how to orientate ourselves, because there's been a lot of concerns about the mysterious county road. If you go to like the second line, or the first line after the colon, it says beginning at the northwest corner of the tract at the intersection of Walton Ferry and the county road. So if you go back to the map, you have to ask yourself, okay, we know where Walton Ferry is, but where's the county road? On this map, there is no other roads in that immediate vicinity. So I'm going to postulate that the county road is the little green strip I have there, which is part of Curtis Crossroads. Now, you can say, well, how do you know that's the case? And if you go to continue reading the description, it says, it sort of allows you to come to that conclusion. Besides, if I postulate wrong to start with, when we make a whole loop, we won't be back where we should be. So it says, beginning at the northwest corner of the tract of the intersections of Walton's Ferry Road and the county road, in the center of each, and running thence south 72 degrees and east 13 chains. In survey parlance, if you say you're running south 72 degrees east, what that means is surveys are referenced to either the cardinal direction of north or south. If you're facing south and you go from the south, you swing a line 72 degrees east. Now, if you went to 90 degrees, you'd be heading due east. 72 degrees is approximately a little south of east, if you will. So what I did is, starting with that, I drew a line, which you can hopefully see on your map. There's a little skinny line that sort of goes from extending on from that green line. And that is heading, I used the protractor, and that's heading the approximately 52 degrees, or 72 degrees south, or from the south line. You can see the little arc I swung there. So that line fits with that county road. So in my opinion, this is the county road that the deed is referring to. There's no other road there. This is in the right direction, and it fits the requirement, because it says, the next continuation of what that says, it says running south 72 degrees east 13 chains. 13 chains, 66 feet in a chain, 22 yards. 13 chains is basically
Mr.
280.
Chmielewski,
Yep, time is up.
we're gonna, yeah, your time's up. We're gonna ask you to come back.
Okay.
Because I know that we're gonna have some questions on this. Could- Could we suspend the rules when we get to that item? Why don't we do that? Yeah. Right now?
Okay.
We have a motion to give him 2 more minutes. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
We have a second to that.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Alderman Petrelli.
Well, I would like for him to continue talking, but can we also have the opportunity to bring him back?
Sure,
to the
if
agenda?
if somebody makes a motion and 7 votes agree to that. So, very good point. Alderman Petrelli, go ahead.
I'm good.
Okay, Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, but if we're going to have the opportunity to have him come back, I was going to say we're only on the second one, and we might need more than just 2 minutes. But if we're going to allow him to come back, and I trust the board would, with this information, that we could talk about it during the actual discussion. So I'll just. However you all want to do it. We can do it now for 2 minutes, and then after his 2 minutes is up, I will probably ask him to come back, ask the board to suspend the rules to allow him to speak.
That way it's all together.
I got you.
Just basic, Mr. Chairman, is this second reading?
Right.
I got you.
It is our second reading.
Right. Without objection, without hearing any objection, we'll allow for 2 more minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chmielewski.
Okay,
Thank you.
I probably won't be able to finish it in 2 minutes, so I'm going to give you the even more abridged edition. So you can go to the follow 13 chains is roughly 300 yards to a rock in the middle of the road. And from there, the instructions say you're going to go south 11.5 degrees west. So basically, you're going due south with a little preference to the west side to the river. That's the blue line I have on my map. That brings you all the way back down to the river. Then the purple line represents the continuation where you're going to head, now it gets a little confusing here, they say north, where am I here? North 78 degrees west. So you're turning north now, and you're still heading west 78 degrees. So you're almost due west, you're a little north of due west, along the river's edge until you come to the southwest corner of a tract in Walton's Ferry Road. Okay? Unless I skipped over it. So yeah, low water mark. To the southwest corner of the tract in Walton's Ferry Road. Walton's Ferry Road, again, the old historic Walton's Ferry Road is the pink line I have drawn on the map. So we have the northwest corner defined, we have the northeast corner defined, the southeast corner defined, and the southwest corner defined. And then from the southwest to the northeast corner, it says, thence, with the center of Walton's Ferry Road, north 9.5 degrees, east 57 chains. When you say with the center of the road, that basically means, and I checked with the surveyor as to the definition of this, that basically means you're going to be following the center line of the road from the one end to the other end. So for instance, up near the north end of the road where it takes a little squiggle to the right and then to the left, your property line would continue on that circle. So that's Mrs. Kozlov's property line. I also have, the next page is the deed from Mr. Roten from 4/27/99, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. Please stay. I think there's going to be
I'll be glad to.
I think there's going to be a.
I'd really like to have the
come back.
discussion back and forth because I
think
think this is an important issue, and
Appreciate that. I appreciate your research, appreciate your time. Joe Waldron.
So if you would please put me at the end of your comments.
I-
May be in violation of something, I want to look at something before I get up there and say exactly what I'm going to talk about.
How's the board feel about that? I don't think we ever had that request before. You're asking to speak as the last person on citizens' comments?
Yes, sir.
He signed in as the next person to speak.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if I am in violation, please stop me. I do not want to.
That concerns me that you start that way. That's, go ahead.
I'm actually here because I'm concerned about one of my representatives. I live at 125 Lyndhurst Circle. I'm here in Hendersonville, in Ward 3. We've had some issues come up that I've seen in the news recently, integrity issues that are accused that really bother me. Do you want me to continue?
You're okay so far?
Okay. I'm actually here, I'd like to call for Angie
Don't do
Heidberg.
that.
What's that?
Don't give names.
Okay. One of my aldermen has recently been in the news with some unfavorable accusations and severe integrity issues, in my opinion. I don't think that's the way we want our city to be represented. I know that's not how I want my area to be represented. Integrity is very, very big to me. When you start having integrity issues, anything that's said after those come out leaves me to second guess and question if that's an honest statement from you.
I'm okay. Go ahead. We're getting close, though. It needs to address issues, not individuals. We're getting close. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So with that in mind, I'd just like to see if there's a time I can come back and address some of those issues specifically that's not in this closed format, where it's more open that I can bring up the specific issues, and when that would be.
It's probably through email or meeting with your alderman or meeting with us individually.
Yes,
Or-
sir.
Or at a committee meeting, probably general committee. Probably general committee.
Okay.
So, okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay. Thank you. Donovan Rice.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Board of Mayor and Alderman. Quickly before I get started, I'm here on the same issue. Would you advise the same thing, or may I go ahead?
You're okay, but I'll hit some rules here real quick.
Right.
Direct them to me.
Right.
Talk about issues, not personalities. Those are the big ones.
Right.
Okay.
All right, to not go off topic and to stick to the rules, I'm going to just go ahead and read exactly what I wrote.
Okay.
First off, I want to thank all of y'all for what y'all do. This is amazing, and to be 20 years old and get to be here and experience this is fantastic for me. Mr. Chairman, as a citizen of Hendersonville and as a man of faith, I'm calling on the resignation of Alderman Ward 3. I'm asking for this resignation because this elected
That's going too far. Let's talk about issues.
issues.
Yeah.
So would you advise this be taken with general committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you feel free to talk to the alderman, feel free to talk to me individually, but at our meetings where we're doing business, I think you're going too far.
Okay.
So,
I'll hold off until general committee.
certainly welcome to submit your items in writing or
All
talk
right.
to individuals.
To you, the chairman?
Sure.
All right, can I do that right now?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
What is your address, Mr. Rice?
118 Waters Edge Line.
Okay. Well, I've got all the addresses here. So, yeah. And I've sort of stopped giving out the addresses. So, okay. Ms. Kozloff. We got you. Thanks.
Yes, I'm Ann Kozloff, 100 Curtis Crossroads. I really didn't come prepared to speak because I took the city attorney's word on what would happen regarding my driveway, that the city would have no claim against it. I paid somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 to Karen Knapp, attorney at law, to do a complete study of this back when the city was closing a public road that went to my property. Now, if this is another public road being closed going to my property, I think y'all are going to have an issue, because that means you have shut me off, period. So I think you better stick with your agreement. But if you don't, that's neither here nor there tonight. But I want to say that I have maintained this property, as pointed out all over again by many people, in addition to me, for over 30 years. Now, I'm going to have a bill of hundreds of thousands of dollars for care of this road if it's yours. I say it's on my deeded property. People have gotten confused because different people have gone in and written things on maps that weren't true. Back then, whatever, she researched this, and I went back and checked it again after that. And I might mention again, the county road that's mentioned on the deed is referring to County Road being Curtis Crossroads and Walton Ferry. My property goes to the center of Curtis Crossroads and Walton Ferry. And that county road that keeps being mentioned is Curtis Crossroads. And that ferry landing is not down there on my property, has never been on my property, and everybody in Hendersonville seems to be confused, thinking it is. It is over to the right of me. And right now, I have an estimate for over $2,000 for one dead tree. There's no telling how many I've already paid to get removed. This is over a camper, so if it's your property, you need to go down there and get the tree down, because it's totally rotted and creaks, and I'm ready to get it done. I've already got the estimate. If there's any of you that have any questions of me, I'd be glad to take them. I was of the opinion that was going to be a vote tonight. I didn't know I was going to have another discussion, because I was taking the city attorney at his word. He made it very clear.
Ms.
And so
Kozloff, I
did
feel
Mr.
like you're
Skidmore.
attacking somebody, so let's stick to the issues, please.
Oh, I'm not attacking him, I'm just saying.
Ms. Kozloff, I feel like you're attacking
Okay.
to somebody. Please stick to
All
the
right.
issue.
The city attorney stated that he would not make no claim against my property. So I took him at his word, is the reason I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris Spencer.
Good evening. Try to read this with my glasses off. Getting old. 2 weeks ago, I was in Cincinnati and I was backing out. My passenger side mirror hit a car next to me. I did that. A few years ago, some odd reason, my wife had the garage door partly down. Since I didn't pay attention and only saw sunlight, I backed right into the door, causing thousands of dollars in damages. And then 2 months ago, my beautiful wife backed out of our garage and backed right into my beautiful bass boat. I could name several other incidents that I have caused, and I wonder how this happens. I wasn't drinking. I prefer to poke fun of me or my wife than to use a similar incident where our local newspaper is trying to insinuate this type of an accident must be drunk driving related. And I like Tina Lee. She does a great service for our community, but her story last week was kind of semi-fake news in my opinion.
Chris.
For one
Let's
reason.
not attack people.
I'm not attacking.
I think it's pretty clear you are.
In my opinion, the event that was discussed in that paper happened 2 months ago. So it wasn't a current event. And the story tried to link a pattern of behavior. And I think that, in my opinion, that was wrong. We are innocent in this country until proven guilty. I am not here today condoning drunk driving, but I am more appalled at some of the behavior from even some of the members of this board. To use this incident for political advantage or personal vendetta is regrettable. I have seen political
We're fine.
pressure.
He's fine. Go ahead.
I have seen
You need to be recognized to call a point of order. We're going to go ahead with this. We may come back to you.
I have seen some say she should apologize to Joseph Taylor, and I say, for what? She beat him in a fair election. She has no reason to apologize to him. Maybe in 2020, if Mr. Taylor wants to win an election, he can start outworking his opponent, which he clearly didn't do this past election. Local and federal lawmakers should, at the very least...
You just attacked somebody else.
Local and federal lawmakers should at least, very least, maintain individual rights and liberty, privacy too. Have any of you heard of the due process that we have in our country? Of being innocent until proven guilty.
Easy. No,
And
no,
innocent
no.
until proven guilty. We are innocent until proven guilty.
Hold on. Chris, can we, let's stop this. Here we go. We don't need to respond. Citizens' comments, he's allowed his 5 minutes, so stop your time. Seriously, Chris, you've attacked two people minorly, but you've attacked two people. It can't happen again. Okay. You want to go ahead? We got about 2 minutes left. You good? Okay.
Are we becoming so hardened today that we can't have any compassion? How would you like it if your picture was plastered in the newspaper and slandered for the world to see? Some of us are acting like judge and jury when what we should be doing is using our Fifth Amendment rights of remaining silent without holding judgment and allow our justice system to work. It's not like she received a $10,000 payment. What we need to do is take a deep breath, show some compassion, and allow the full record of evidence to be presented before throwing sharp, irresponsible stones. It is what you would want if this happened to you. We all deserve rights of innocence, and this board should protect these rights no matter what the accusation is. I am sickened to see this. Let me quote from Paul. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. That includes all of us. May I remind you that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney twice were convicted of DUIs and became president and the vice president of the United States. The list is long of politicians who have been convicted of DUIs across this country and who have never resigned or lost his or her position. That is what elections are for. And if this incident is such a disqualifying issue for her in 2020, then we should allow the voters to make that decision and not politicians. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. Donovan DeSopa. Thank you. Hold on one second. I said I'd come back to you, Alderman Sprouse. Hold on here. Hold on. Go ahead.
Thank you. I know that we're in a very difficult situation between people who
I'm
are...
coming back to you for a point of order.
Okay, point of order was that I think it's very clear when someone says that action is being taken for political reasons, that very clearly questions the motives of anyone in this body or anyone in this government. And I hope that in a highly charged situation that we can, it's always best to go close with the rules. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay. Go ahead. Thank you.
My name is Donna DeSopo. I live at 101 Chambliss Court. It's been quite a while since I've addressed this governing body, and I'm relieved to see some new faces that are here this evening. But I want to talk about a few things, and I'm going to address some things that I'm very relieved about, and I want to say kudos to our mayor and this governing body to appropriate funding that allowed us to make sure that our city is much safer tonight. I also want to thank our police department for a fine job that they have done. I also want to thank you for coming and for both of our ward aldermen for offering to have the police come to Madskers Farm and to invite us at our small subdivision, we don't have a facility so that we can attend. So I do thank you for having us at Manskers Farm and the board at Manskers Farm as well. During that time, and I want to thank Officer Owens because he gave a wonderful presentation, and there were leave-behinds that were put on the table. And I have one actually right here with me. So whoever constructed this, I want to thank you so very much. What we have to do ourselves is to be accountable for our own safety. We have a police force, yes, but they can't always be there all the time, 24/7. So everything that we can do to have our part in ensuring safety, not only for ourselves, but for our community, is going to go really a long way. Our city is growing in leaps and bounds. There's approximately 100 people coming every day to Henderson, to the Nashville area. So of course they're going to migrate into the sister cities as they try to find housing. I can attest to this because I am a property owner. I have multiple properties and multiple tenants, and what I actually do is I give them this as part of their welcome packet. And again, you know, there's some very wonderful points of things what to do and what not to do. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to do thank you very much for all that you do. Okay? And you guys too, thank you. But I'm going to segue into something else too that's important and on topic, and something I've been actually part of for a very long time. It took quite a long time to get streetlights in our subdivision, and it actually helped with the visual ability to see the perpetrators of what happened to one of my fellow neighbors, which was really heart-wrenching. So what I'm kindly asking this board to do is to stay the course in providing adequate light. The only way that we can help our officers and everyone involved and have community watch is so that we can be well lit at night, especially too, and so that we can help catch those who are doing things that are not so good in our city and doing harm to our people. So I kindly ask that you stay focused on completing the list. And it was quite lengthy at the time. There were at least 10 subdivisions at the time that lacked adequate light, and there's some other outliers that we haven't even captured. So I do ask you to appropriate the funding to infrastructure. These are basic needs as opposed to wants. I do want to also thank Chris for coming up, Chris Spencer, and some of the things that were said. You know, when we talk about topics of integrity, I am very relieved that some, change has come to this board. I'm very relieved because, my Ward 3 Alderman, she's helped so much too. She's worked very hard, and I want to give her thanks to that too. And let justice take its course. We cannot be judge and jury how many of us have fallen from grace. None of us are immune from hardships in our times. I know I've fallen and I've gotten up, and I think everybody in this room in our lives are going to stumble and fall. So I ask this board to go forward in compassion, as Chris has asked, and I'm going to echo those sentiments because there are sins of the past that we are paying for today, and I'm rightfully aware of them. I've done a lot of research myself too, and I've come to this board, and I've asked for things to happen and change. I'd like us to move ahead and move forward and focus on the task at hand, focus on the job at hand. If there are any things that you have, whether it's personal or whatnot,
30
put
seconds.
those aside, because in only working together as a governing body, you're going to be able to take care of the challenges that we have before us, and we have a lot of them. As we grow as a city, we are growing so quickly. I kindly ask that you walk forward and do what we are kindly asking of you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's the end of citizens' comments. Our next item on the agenda is committee reports. Finance Committee, Alderman Cunningham. No, you weren't. Sorry.
Am I on?
Now you are.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee was held on June 27th. One committee member was not present. We had Resolution 2017-4 authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of interest-bearing capital outlay notes not to exceed $5,793,025. That was recommended unanimously. And that's the bond that was previously approved by Boma as part of the budget process. Included in the bond is construction of a new fire hall at $2.4 million. If that excess is, I mean, if that does not meet the $2.4 million, the excess will be applied to paving. Road paving and sealing, $850,000. Inline hockey resurfacing, $120,000. Mary's Magical Place, $130,000. 2 fire trucks, $880,000. Drakes Creek widening project, $668,025. Sanders Ferry walking trails, $620,000. Construction of horse barn, $125,000, for a total of $5,793.25. The process, as I understand it from Ron, our budget director, our finance director, sorry. The budget, and I understand the budget has been approved by the state. The next process is getting the bond approved by our board at the second, tonight. And the bond after the bond gets approved by our board, it goes to the state for their approval. And then, because it's over $5 million, it has to be advertised. It has to be advertised in a national newspaper like the Wall Street Journal for about 2 weeks. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Ron. And then we put it out to the financial institutions to see who's going to give us the best deal and the best rate, the best terms. And after we accept those terms and conditions, we sign the paperwork, and we should have the money approximately by the end of August, beginning of September. Is that right? Okay. Also at the meeting, our Country Hills Golf Course budget there was a budget discussion. We had the Golf Course Commission liaison, Alderman Andy Gilley, and Golf Course Management Company personnel were all part of the discussion. We reviewed the budget overage report for May 2017. It looks like we'll finish out the year on pace, and we reviewed the revenue reports for May 2017. Local revenue up at 101.5%, total county revenue 72.3%, total state revenue 99.4%, total operating revenue 101.2%, total grant revenue 468.8%, total general fund revenue 101.4%, and this is the best part of the report. The sales tax report, year-to-date, we're 105.5% over our budget, or $654,292. And over the actual, this year actual over last year's actual, we're $533,206 over last year actual year-to-date, or 104.61%. And that is the end of my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Alderman Hedberg, do you have a question for this report?
Actually, I'm not sure. I wanted to try to suspend the rules to make a statement prior to the committee reports, but we're already into the...
Yeah, we're on committee reports here.
Can I do that after the committee reports?
You'll have to ask to add it to the agenda.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is General Committee. Chairman Sprouse.
Thank you, Mayor. General Committee met tonight. We had one item of business on the agenda, a resolution dealing with amending the job classification list and the pay table to reflect some changes that were made during the budget process, and that was recommended to the board unanimously and will be before us, I guess, in 2 weeks. On tonight's agenda, the meeting, we have ordinance 2017-22 having to deal with the abandonment of right-of-way. The General Committee had previously recommended that ordinance unanimously, but I would like to point out that that ordinance had been amended in first reading, and I'll be very happy to discuss that when we get to that topic on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Sprouse. Public Safety Committee, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give 2 reports. We had a meeting at 5:30 with several people concerning staff traffic safety and parking committee, which has not been a very active committee. There were some issues brought up to this board a couple weeks ago concerning speeding in neighborhoods and HOAs that were requesting lowering of speed limits, speed bumps, and some of those other things. So we met tonight. Mr. Moore has recommended some additions and deletions to that group. We will be meeting again here in a couple weeks, and that committee will be made up of a patrol division person that Chief Miller designates, traffic engineer who is not hired yet but is in the budget that will probably be hired, the planning director or his designee, and our fire marshal, and plus a designation person from our public safety committee to further discussions on that. So there'll be a report later on that. Safety committee itself, we had a discussion regarding the policy for allowing employees with carry permits to carry on duty. There's basically two discussions here. One of them pertain to EMS and EMTs that we house in our fire halls from the county that have been told that they can carry in our fire halls. That was a pretty strong discussion, and we've asked the mayor to contact Mayor Holt, Mr. Bradley, and our fire chief to have a meeting with their attorney to kind of smooth this issue out a bit. It's kind of decided that we don't want folks in our fire hall necessarily carrying unless we know a little bit more about them or we know that they've been trained. So that will be happening, and then there'll be a further discussion from our department heads, mayor, and public safety representatives concerning policies for firearms being allowed to be carried on city property, in city property by employees. I also had asked the police chief to give us an update on carjackings, car burglaries, and related crimes. That was amazingly thorough. I think what was so thorough about it that we've had 12 young men who sadly have fallen into the wrong things that become very dangerous young men because they are stealing cars, stealing guns, and shooting at people. But what I would tell you is our police department has put some countless hours in, and all 12 of these juveniles, teenagers, have been caught and are in the process of being prosecuted. So Mr. Sopel said it a while ago, and I will say it as the safety director, and I think I can echo for everybody on this board. Thank you, Chief Miller, and all the hours that you and your guys have put in protecting our city.
Thank you, guys.
A couple more things I would add to that, the Chief always says be vigilant. He's told me that more than one time. You as a community, please be vigilant. Look around, see what's going on. If you see something that doesn't look right, call the police department. Don't take it for granted. And lock your cars. Please lock your cars. The bad guys are going to go around. They're going to look for something easy to do. If they can get in a car that's unlocked, they've proven they'll do that. So please lock your cars. Please be vigilant. Help our police department as much as they can. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Alderman Wilcox, do you have a question for this report?
Yeah, yes, I do. I have a question. I meant to ask this during the traffic committee meeting, but I forgot. The member of the newly formed committee that has not yet been hired, when will that position be filled, and will we wait for that position to be filled before we start moving forward with the process? Not sure if Chip...
That's a split question.
Answered
to me and him.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we're not going to wait till that person's hired before we meet again. He can answer the second half of that. When it'd be hard, I don't know. We'll meet again probably in 2 weeks, 2 to 3.
We hope to advertise that position in December and have the person on board January 1.
Thank you, Chip. Chairman Brown, is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Public Works, Chairman Skidmore.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a brief couple of comments. We are scheduled to meet in 2 weeks at 5:30 here at out here in the public at the City Hall. I was going to make a report tonight, but we've got about 30 some odd projects that Public Works are going over at this point in our packet. But in light of some of the things that we've got, by the next meeting, a lot of these things will be either in the process of going through or we've completed. So with that, I'll just say we'll give another report here at our next meeting, and got some exciting projects obviously we're going to be resolved. So hope everybody had a great 4th and get ready to go back to work. Thanks, Mayor.
Chairman Skidmore, thank you.
All right.
Capital Projects Committee, Chairman Campbell.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next Capital Project Committee meeting will be on the 18th of this month at 5 o'clock, and that would be my report, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commission, Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. So we met last night to a packed house again. I'm going to go through and read all of the approved projects, and then I will get to the one denial that we had. So approved projects in Hendersonville: Norman Creek Phase 1, Norman Creek Phase 2, Durham Farms Phase 2, Morris Orthodontics, the site plan, Tire Discounters site plan, that's located back in Glenbrook Way, Savannah Phase 8, Section 2, Savannah Phase 9, both preliminary plats. And then we approved in Indian Lake Center Phase 1, the use of an animal hospital, which is over by Publix. There was a question on rezoning to allow that usage, so we passed that. We did have a public hearing regarding the request by Destiny Real Estate Ventures to rezone 35 acres from suburban residential low-density SR1 to suburban residential low-density planned development SR1 PD for the old Beatty Farms. We had a very large public showing, and we had, I don't know, 25 people speak, maybe more. Ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended denial of that project, which brings them back to 80 lots. Is that correct, Keith? In that area. So that wraps up our meeting from last night. And this Thursday, July 13th, from 4 to 6 p.m., we will be honoring and celebrating Fred Rogers for his service to our city as he retires. And that's all. Thank you.
Alderman Petrelli, thank you. Henderson Horizons, Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you. Note to self, don't need a payday right before your committee report. Good. All over me. Real quick, 3 working groups have been meeting. They're on their 5th round of meetings. The steering committee will meet again in August, and I will give that date when it is set. I look forward to an email. Thank you.
Alderman Strauss, do you have a question on that?
Yes, Mayor. I'd actually like to make a motion to suspend rules. We have a member of this board that probably earlier would have been able to make a motion of personal privilege, because if we're going to spend a few minutes talking about a member of this board, that member of the board give an opportunity to respond.
Hold on. It's not about this committee report.
No, I thought we were done with the committee report. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to suspend rules. If that's approved, I will then make a second motion to allow Mrs. Hegberg to make a comment. I don't want to have a topic of discussion, but if she would like to have her ability to say anything to anyone on this board or in this community, especially since she has been a topic of discussion, I'd like to give her that ability. And so my motion is first to suspend rules so we can amend the agenda.
I don't want to recognize your motion quite yet, because my intention was when we got to other agenda items, since we have several people here, can we come back and take your motion at that point when we get to other agenda items?
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Withdraw my second.
I didn't even recognize it, so you're okay. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I said it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next on the agenda is second reading of ordinance 2017-22. This is an ordinance abandoning an unnamed road right-of-way located east of Lake Harbor subdivision in the Kozlov Trailer Park. This is the area south of Curtis Crossroads. I am the sponsor of this. I will make that motion. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. I would also go ahead and make it, well, Peg, Alderman Petrelli, you're recognized.
I'd like to suspend the rules to allow further discussion.
We have a motion to suspend the rules and a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules to allow Mr. Chmielewski to speak? Anybody else? Just him? And Ms. Kozlov? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. It passes unanimously. Mr. Chmielewski, could you join us again? Thank you. Why don't you pick up where you were, and you might get questions this time. You have no obligation to answer those questions.
I certainly hope I do the questions.
Okay.
That's the fastest 5 minutes of my life. I'd like to state up front, you know, I am just a personal citizen. I have no dealings with Mrs. Kozlov. I have no dealings with Creekside, who are the big property owners here. I'm looking out for the interests of what I view as my neighbors. John DeLong and his wife Jolene, who's here tonight, have property that adjoins this property that I think is in conflict. Oscar and Naomi Rice also have property that might be impacted by this, and Jackie Parker and Robert Cudkins, who I just met today, might also have some interest in this. What I was trying to do is read off of Mrs. Kozlov's deed and define where the property line is. And in my opinion, when you look at the deed, and we do, that unnamed road is indeed Curtis Crossing, that it's very clear where the property line is. The other thing I was getting into was Mr. Roten's deed, where I'm developing the property line for him. If you go to the last page of my package there, there's a plat from the Curtis, J.B. Curtis subdivision that shows, that's referenced basically in the Roten's deed. Very quickly on Roten's deed, it starts with lot 21, it heads north. This one isn't as clear cut in my opinion. It would probably take more of a surveyor to confirm everything. But it heads north to the center of Circle Drive. It follows the property line of Circle Drive, and portions of that is now abandoned, or I'm sorry, there was some, abandoned by ordinance 1996-16. It continues down the center line of Circle Drive, and then on step 6, or item 6 of the description, it says, with the curve to the right southeasterly distance to an iron pin set in a westerly line of parcels 33 and 34 owned by Margaret Ann Koslov, by deed recorded in the book, which is the deed we talked about earlier. So that gets basically Mr. Roden's property to the western line of Mrs. Koslov's property. Item 7 says it continues south with the western line of Mrs. Kozlov property. 8 and 9 also continue south with the Kozlov property line, and then to an existing monument cap under the U.S. government property. From then on in, you're getting into the U.S. government property, which is the core property. If you look back at the map on the last page, there's a couple interesting things you can see. First, on the right-hand side where I have highlighted something that says full road, it's showing the width of the road being, you know, a normal roadside compared to the other roads. It also shows that little bump out that you can see in the map of Walton Ferry Road, the earlier map that we looked at earlier. So that is basically the Walton Ferry Road continuing down. And then when it gets to where the Circle Drive enters, the abandoned portion of Circle Drive enters that road, you notice that the width of the road shown there is divided in half. That basically, I think, is adding to the fact that surveys, or the property line, is to the center line of that road. And that road, again, is a continuation of Walton Ferry Road. So per Mrs. Kozlov's deed, she owns the center line of that road, and per Mr. Roten's deed, he owns to the center line of that road. So that's basically all I had to plan to say on that particular issue. I do have some maps. As I was researching this, I found several maps, U.S. Geological Survey maps, that show from 1952 on, which I have on the monitor here. If I can get this operating, I could present those to you, or I can just pass those around, whichever you prefer.
Let's pass them out.
I don't have individual copies. I can pass them around.
Okay.
I can do that if you want me to. Basically, the 1952 map, which is just to the other side of when the original deed, 1945 deed, was placed, shows, again, the Walton Ferry Road extending down, but now it's shortened because as the ferry was no longer in use, the property usage changed. it does show it going to some houses that were out there. The other maps that I have also show the property going to the deed, or property continuing on. There's a 1957 map, shows the property, or the Walton Ferry Road, and now it also shows the beginning of Circle Drive, the natural circle in the road. I have a 1968 map, a 1983 map, and a 2000 map, which is really, or 2017 map, which isn't really too illustrative because that's sort of showing what the condition is now, which we're all familiar with. What I'm trying to do here is give people a view of how a property looked back when the deeds were originally written and how the use of the road changed. In my opinion, I think the right-of-way was to allow the people who lived further in on the peninsula to allow them to access their property using the continued roadway of the historic Walton Ferry Road. So I can, if you want me, can I pass these around?
Yeah, I think a lot of people like to see them.
And that was in 50, there's the earliest one was in 52. These are the U.S. Geological Survey maps. There's also a map from, there, I got this written down somewhere. A substantially older map from 1856, I forget the exact date, that I saw up in the Sumner County Records Library that showed the Walton Ferry Road going all the way down to the river. So that road has been here for a long time. I didn't get a copy of that map because one wasn't available and I couldn't take a picture because of the restrictions up there. But it is available if somebody wants to go look at it. So what I've tried to do is research deeds, research maps. These maps are all public record. I haven't altered any of them. You can go look them up yourselves. I've looked at the deeds. They're all public record. I pulled them up, looked them up. And, you know, based on that, it looks like, in my opinion, the property line is well defined on this property. So if you abandon the road, you can go to the original deeded property for that road, which is what got me interested in this when I heard the discussions from May 23rd. So that's...
Appreciate it. Alderman Stamper, do you have a question for our guest?
No, I do not.
Okay. Does anybody have a question for Mr. Chmielewski? Don't go far, because we might have some questions in a minute, please.
Okay.
Ms. Kozlov, would you like to speak? It's completely up to you if you want to.
As I said, I'm not prepared to speak tonight because we've already shown you all these maps before, and we tried to explain to you before. Number one, if Mr. Roten had any claim to this, Mr. Roten had been in real estate. I know personally since 1958, my first position was at a mortgage company, and Mr. Roten used to come in there. So he knows what he's doing, and he managed to get half of the road that was closed, and if there was any way he could have had this, he would have, trust me. Number one, that driveway that I have that y'all are referring to never went to the ferry, as I said before. It went off up another place, and if you look, go up Circle Drive and look, you can see remnants of it. This was a big farm, and Mr. Wilkerson explained to me how when the water came in either 56 or 57, that he moved the house that I'm presently living in off of the farm and up there. There was no driveway in there until he came up there and put it in. It was his farm. And he told me so many times I couldn't count it. I wish I hadn't let those people cross my land to get to that subdivision that Curtis put in, because they've caused me nothing but grief. And so now, the grief is turned to the city's named it a road. The city's tried to claim the rest of the driveway that he put in. There's witnesses up there that know that driveway was put in by Mr. Wilkerson. But, I mean, they want to live close to $1 million homes. They're not going to say anything that would, you know, interfere with that. You know, if it's going to increase the value of your property, you're going to go along with the dog is a cat. You know, But what I'm telling you is, as I said before, and I think the city, most of you even agreed with me, that I've maintained it for over 30 years. The way he's drawing that is not the way it is. Circle Drive goes up and around, and that part of it is where that ferry thing went off. The other part is the arm that goes off that Mr. Roten got half of, that closed off my house lot to a public road. He got half and Morris got half. And I don't know how much clearer I can make it that my driveway was not a road. The road was Curtis Crossroads. My property, according to Mr. Wilkerson and according to all the paperwork that I can find in my 3 tracts of property, is that my property goes up to the center of Curtis Crossroads, and that's what my surveyor, Mr. Holland, told me. Now, unless Mr. Wilkerson is wrong and Mr. Holland is wrong, which Mr. Wilkerson was there before any of these people, then both of them would have to be dead wrong. And like I said, if you have any questions, ask me. I don't know what more I can say, except that, like I said, I've maintained it over 30 years. So in my opinion, it makes it mine whether it was or not. But I assure you that what they're telling you is not the way it happened up there.
Alderman Sprouse, do you have a question for?
I do not. I'm just ready, if no one else has a question, I'm ready to.
Thank you, Mr.
start
Council.
debate.
I'm going to go back to Alderman Stamper first.
Yes, I just had a question about the way the ordinance is worded. At the end of it, it says it's hereby abandoned and conveyed by quitclaim deed to the adjoining property owner. I thought that we had amended it such that it said we were going to deed it to Ms. Kozlov.
We did.
We did.
Is that not? That's my recollection as well.
Yes.
We did. Just to include her name and parcel ID.
And it would be quitclaim, the QUITCLAIM, one word.
This says quick claim deed.
I understand. Typographical error there.
What do we do?
Well, if he's saying if everybody agrees it's the amendment, that's what it should say.
Well, I'll just make a motion to amend it to quit claim deed, we get that right, and to Ms. Kozlov. That's my amendment.
I'll second that.
So moved.
Here, explain that a little bit more, Alderman Stamper. What's your motion?
That the last sentence, instead of quick claim deed to the adjoining property owner, read conveyed by quit claim deed to Ms. Kozlov.
Okay. You're asking for it to be what it was. Am I correct? What we approved 4 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
just to make it simple. I just
Okay, we've got a motion.
amend this as it's written.
Gotcha. We've got a motion and a second.
Yes.
Any discussion on that motion?
My comment will apply to the motion as to the amendment as much as to the main question, so I'll be happy to discuss it here.
Go ahead.
This ordinance has appeared before 2 different general committees. Committee before the election of 2016, deferred and came to a committee the election after 2016. The ordinance that both committees considered was without this amendment. And I think it's very important because I think if we discuss what this ordinance is without this amendment, we may find the amendment or any adjustment we make to it tonight is a moot point. The issue that was being presented to us in first reading and recommended by the General Committee was that the city was stating that it had no interest in the property that may have been identified not as a road, but as a road right-of-way. That those are things that's an instrument that is available to the city, the county, the state, that we don't own the property, but we do have an interest to have the ability to use it for public access. No one has demonstrated to the General Committee, I don't think anyone has demonstrated to the board that the city has any ownership interest or has any right-of-way interest in that property, which is why this was being brought forward to us. That also, Mr. Bradley is a fine man and a fine attorney and does not need my defense. But that is why what he said, we heard that he promised was the city wasn't going to take property. That's what that amendment was saying, is we're not taking it, we don't want it, we want to have a situation that a board 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now would be able to take that without going through the same process we do whenever we have to acquire right away, which is negotiate with a property owner and give them the opportunity to sell it to us and go through those steps. We're stepping back. I did not feel very comfortable during first reading. We had a presentation from the assessor of property. Kind of gave us a mixed message that we didn't have the authority to really say who owned it, but at the same time, we needed to say who owned it. We couldn't say we didn't own it. It was a mixed message, but it really came down to me. I left that meeting with the feeling that I ran to be an alderman for the city of Hendersonville, not to be a judge. And that the office I hold does not give me the authority, the prerogative, or even the tools to decide what really is a property dispute between two private property owners. So whether or not we say this is going to be deeded to the adjoining, we're going to give this to the adjoining property owner, we're going to give this to Mrs. Kozloff, however we're going to do it, I think really what we should do is we should amend this ordinance back into its original form so that the only thing the city of Hendersonville is saying is this land is not our land. I think that the documentation that's been presented to us tonight, I can't say that it has proven whose land it belongs to, but I will tell you that it has proven to me that regardless of what we do, someone could go into court and it's going to have to be decided by a judge anyway, and I don't want the city of Hendersonville to be considered a party of any of those lawsuits because of an action that we take tonight. I have a lot of compassion for everyone involved. At first reading, we had a group of people who came scared to death that the city was taking their home, and it was explained that we're not doing that. I think this board overreacted perhaps because of the emotion of the situation and said, not only are we not going to take it from you, we're going to give it to you. And it's understandable that other property owners who may feel that they have an interest in the property are now coming to us on second reading. That's many reasons why we have two readings for ordinances. And they come and they make their case. One may be more logical, the other one may be more emotional, but what's before us is, I just think that we just need to, my choice would be that the maker and the seconder of this motion and this amendment would either withdraw it or accept an amendment that what we do is we strike the clause and go back to the original form that was presented to us on the first. Make it very clear. The original ordinance is presented on first reading. The city is not taking anyone's land. The city is not retaining the right to take anyone's land. The city is not saying that that is a road. The city is saying, we don't know, we don't have the authority to decide that, and we need to have the people who are elected to make those decisions and have the training and the tools before them to make that. I think it's an overstep. Thank you.
Alderman Strauss, thank you. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes, thank you.
Now we're ready. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
It's only been 8 months. I haven't
That's
figured
okay.
it out yet.
I had my light on prior to the amendment because I needed to ask, and I apologize, but I cannot pronounce your last name. I know Carl.
Mr. Chmielewski.
Chmielewski. There we go. I just run it real fast, and it sounds good. Okay, let me do that. Chmielewski. All right, I'll try that. But I know we're not allowed to speak to him yet, but maybe when we go back, my point was, well, it's not on the amendment, though.
Oh, can we come back to you?
No, because I have to speak to about the amendment.
Okay.
I'm somewhat concerned that I'll come back to Carl. I'm somewhat concerned about the amendment because I, like my colleague from Ward 2, I was under the impression that when we first started to vote on this, that all we were doing was letting the folks that were here let them know that we had no interest in that property. That was all we were going to do, because they were concerned that we were going to do that. That was what that vote was to let, we don't have, like, and I know Alderman Sprouse has said that tonight, but I want to reiterate to make sure that I'm correct in my assumption, is the city had no interest in that property. Now, so now I'm concerned that, and I think, and I'd have to go back and review the minutes of that meeting, but I even think, I'm almost sure we even said this to Ms. Kosloff, that if she wanted that property, that it was going to wind up going to a court in Gallatin, that she would have to plead her case before a judge in Gallatin. I'm not sure that's the case. I'd have to go back and review it, because that might be my thought process. I just can't recall with that. But I think we said it would probably either go to Chancery or Chancery Court, and that she would, that if anybody else had an interest in that property, that not only Ms. Kosloff would be there, but those property owners, or who they think they have an interest would be there to plead their case to a Chancery judge. But the thing is, the city of Hendersonville would not be there, because we don't have any interest in that property, because it doesn't benefit the city of Hendersonville whatsoever. That's what I thought that we said the last time in this thing. If I'm wrong, I want somebody to tell me about that, if I'm wrong in that. Do you feel that way?
No, we amended it to give it to the property owner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alderman Skidmore. Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you. And this is about the amendment, but bear with me.
Okay.
So, at general, we did vote to just say Hendersonville has no rights to the property. And it was my understanding that that was the easiest way, and it would just be taken care of. It came here, and there was confusion that it would actually end up being a lawsuit of some kind. So I said, I believe my exact words were, let's take it one step further so there'd be no confusion, and let's add the property owner's name, Ms. Kozlov, to the amendment. So that's what the paper should say tonight. And at first, I didn't care about the amendment that was just made, but if that gets voted down, technically, we're reversing an amendment from a month ago, because the piece of paper in front of you should say her name. So I'd almost just prefer we agree what it should say based on what we voted on a month ago. And then if someone wants to make an amendment to remove that, then let's have that vote. But let's not, try to make it too confusing.
Let's hear from our city attorney at this time.
Yes, I think we've already clarified what the amendment was. The amendment should have been conveyed by quitclaim deed to Ann Kozloff. And that's what is in the ordinance as it's passed, and we're going to treat it that way. But what you're saying, and I think what Mr. Sprouse is saying, is that if someone wants to change that, they would move to amend that last phrase. And but right now, that's what it's, right now, first reading, we passed that with that amendment. There's no question in my mind about that.
So why do we need this amendment right now?
There's not an amendment now unless somebody wants to take
No,
that.
we do have one.
Motion and second, I'd like to remove for
There you go.
sake of clarity my motion, because, yes.
For the sake of clarity, definitely. I appreciate that. And we have,
We are acting as though this says to cause law.
Yeah, that's what
okay.
that's what the signed version says.
Okay, so we are back on the main motion. We do not have an amendment on the table. We are acting as if we're acting as we, on a motion and a proposed ordinance that we had amended a month ago. And that was to convey the property to Ms. Kozloff.
Right.
Okay. Alderman Petrelli.
Okay, bear with me. So tell me exactly where we're at. We're at the
We're at where we were 4 weeks ago?
with the deeding to Ms. Kozlov.
Yes,
Okay.
and that has been passed. That's what we have in front of us right now.
Okay.
Second reading of doing that.
So what my concern is, John, what is the precedent for the city of Hendersonville deeding property to citizens in Hendersonville?
Well, in the past, we've had an ordinance like this. A part of it has been that the property, the person we're conveying it to signs the deed also and agrees to indemnify and hold the city harmless from any liability as a result of the conveyance. We've done that consistently. just to avoid the situation where someone claims a piece of property, we deed it to them, and then later turns out that it wasn't their property, or that some judge says it wasn't theirs.
But how many times have we done that?
Several. I don't have
Several?
a number. We've done several.
But not a lot. Okay,
I mean,
so,
As we've done it, we've required that. The most recent one I remember was the owner of the bait shop, when there was a bait shop, which is now something completely different. But she wanted the roadway behind her, and there was an ordinance that had abandoned that roadway years ago. The then mayor of Hendersonville, Jim Fuquay, signed a deed to her, and she signed a whole harmless agreement to the city.
sure, yeah, in my research, it was my understanding that we just haven't taken this unusual added step a lot. With the precedent being set that part of Circle Drive that was abandoned in 96, it went to the middle. Is that correct? To the middle of the right-of-way?
I don't know that we ever deeded any of that property. We just abandoned it, which is how this started out, abandoned it.
I'm talking about Circle Road, when this road was abandoned in 96. Ordinance 1996-16.
I don't recall the city deeding that to anyone, is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
that's
We
not,
abandoned it.
that's not my question, though, about the deeding. My question is the precedent of, oh, never mind. So here's my concern. To take a conservative measure, I'm fine with abandoning that right-of-way. I'm very concerned about the specific language of deeding it to anyone. That's my concern. Because we've seen new information today. This has been going on for months now. There's still not crystal clear clarity. So in my mind, if we go back to the original ordinance, which was to just simply abandon the right-of-way and keep it simple, or if we're going to get into deeding property to folks, I think that more time needs to be spent, with it going back to the general committee, more time. Thank you.
Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to see if we could not take a 10-minute recess for a couple reasons. One of them is water. The other one is we're talking about an amendment we made a month ago that we passed that we really don't have in front of us now, that we have passed minutes since that time, that we agreed on that. I would like to ask our recorder to go pull a copy of those minutes just for clarity and transparency, to make sure we're 100% singing the same song.
Okay. Okay. Well, hold on. Our motion is to recess.
Is to recess for 10 minutes
okay.
and get a copy of that.
And we have a second. I want to remind y'all, during a recess, we don't discuss items that need to be deliberated. So we have a motion and a second to take a recess. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
There was only one no.
All those opposed to taking a recess, please raise your hand. Just Alderman Waters, Alderman Woodcock.
I was in favor, I was just going to ask a quick question.
Okay,
Instead of
well-
just getting the minutes, we have to take,
well,
just show the.
We're gonna take a recess. We have a vote of 12-1. So we're gonna take a recess for 10 minutes. Steve, want to respect Alderman Brown's motion?
Oh, we all respect Alderman Brown. Just abandon it and don't take it. Back after break.
Alderman Stamper. Did you know you were next in?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to, there's a lot of confusion about it. There's talk that it might end up being settled in court, and there was a lot of even discussion for our assessor whether or not we even owned the property and had the right to abandon it. It seemed like at one point he said that we needed to do something with it, and the second we need to be careful about doing anything with it. So I'd like to amend this thing to say, to the extent that we have an interest in it, which could be none, I think, with that kind of language. I'm not a lawyer, but to the extent that the city of Hendersonville has interest in this, that we hereby abandon it and just stop there.
Yeah, that's right.
Help me understand where you want that text, and maybe discuss with our city attorney here. Hold on.
Yeah, the amendment to strike the amendment from 2 weeks ago and replace it with language that would say, to the extent that the city of Hendersonville has an interest in this.
Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
property.
What I think your motion be is that parcels 170, NA 33 and 34 is hereby abandoned to the extent Hendersonville, the city has any interest in the property. Period.
I think that's the most prudent thing to do.
It
and
makes
I'm-
it very clear the city claims nothing.
And that's my motion.
We have a motion and a second from Alderman Strauss. Alderman Stanford, you want to speak on this anymore?
No.
Okay. Alderman Brown, did you want to come back?
Yes, just quickly, thanks, Kay, for going to get that. I just want to make sure that we were all clear what we passed a month ago and where we're at now. Thank you.
Alderman Strauss?
I appreciate the amendment, and I'm very happy to sponsor, to second that one. To address a couple of the questions earlier about how often does the city do something like this, it is very rare. I've been here about half the time that the city attorney has been, but I know that in all the cases that we've done that, in my time in office, we've never had anyone before us contesting as we were making the decision. And to me, that's a very important distinction. It's something that has, in all discussions, all public discussions, committee discussions, and in 2 readings of doing these sorts of things, it has been presented and has played out as nothing more than us doing, just trying to clean up the paperwork. And this is the first time ever that I've had any sort of dispute, and it's the reason for that dispute that I think that we should be very, very careful. Thank you.
Alderman Strauss, thank you. Alderman Skidmore?
Thank you. I needed to ask Carl one more question that we weren't able to get to, and it was my final question, and then we got through. In your research, and according, because you all are obviously you're concerned about the property owners that you're here tonight discussing this with, what do you see in your research that you've had? Because I've seen Ms. Kozlov's research. In your research, what do you see the goal here is? What do you perceive to be the issue for those property owners?
The issue for the property owners is that they may lose property that would be entitled to them.
Okay.
I think my research shows that the deed, Mrs. Kozlov's deed, when you read it, clearly states that it goes to the center line of the Walton Ferry Road, the old portion of Walton Ferry Road. There are portions like, so I don't have any, it seems to me that would be very clear. I don't think according to what like John Isabel was talking about last time I was here, the city should not be in the process of giving somebody's land to somebody else. Now, if Mrs. Kozlov has a problem with the property line, she can bring that up in court and challenge the property line in court. For instance, the property line between the Creekside property and the Lot 31, with the abandoned section of the road, is that going to Mrs. Kozlov with this motion? If we were to abandon the property to Mrs. Kozlov, who gets that property? There's a section of the property up near Lot 32, Oscar and Naomi Rice's land. There's that currently in the tax map shows up as unassigned property. Who does that property go to? That little wedge of property. And down at the other end, John and Jolene DeLong, who does their wedge of property go to? Does Mrs. Kozlov get all this property that should really be entitled to other owners or not? And I don't think the city council should be deciding that. I think they should go to reverting back to the original property line that is there, and then based on that property line, or just, revert back to that property line.
Okay.
And then they'd also have to decide what to do with these other little pieces, like the piece of property between the abandoned section of Circle Drive. That should be taken care of. And if we go to the, existing property lines for all the owners, I don't think the city would have any legal obligation to defend why they did what they did. Now, it could be one property owner could say, hey, I think I got cheated in this deal, and they could take it to county court or to the civil court to demand that their property goes back if there's a deed dispute. But in my opinion, the deeds are very clear. I have the deed for Mrs. Kozlov, I have the deed for Roden and the Curtis subdivision plat 2, so there's some deeded land there. I think they should go to, what the current deeds on record show versus just arbitrarily assigning property.
All right, thank you. You've answered my question, and then my next question is to the amendment that's on the floor to the maker, or it may even go to Mr. Bradley, I'm not sure, or whomever can answer this for me. What exactly does this do with the plat numbers that we were talking about here? I think 31 and 32. What happens to those? To that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all we're doing is saying that Sumner County tax assessors records show this as a public roadway.
And so
we don't have any interest in it.
That's
We're
all?
abandoning it,
That's
so
good.
it shouldn't show up as a public road. It shouldn't affect Ms. Kozloff or her neighbors either way. From what we're doing, all we're doing is saying,
Right.
we're agreeing with her. It's not a public road, and we don't want it as a public road. And so let me read the amendment so everybody's clear on that. It says that parcels is hereby abandoned to the extent the city has any interest in this property.
Okay.
So if we've got any interest in it, we're abandoning it. If we don't have any interest in it, this doesn't amount to much except to let the tax assessor know that it's not ours. And if it's going to not be assessed, it's somebody else's, but it's not the city of Hendersonville.
So and then my final question to you is, so their argument is not with the people that are interested in the property that we're abandoning is not with us anymore.
That's correct.
It'll be up